Thanks to TCL for sponsoring this video. When you think of TCL, this probably isn't what pops into your head. Most of you guys probably know TCL from their TVs. They make really high quality displays powered by Roku that they're being sold at very reasonable prices for the features that you get. That's TCL's like bread and butter, what they are known for globally, and they do a really good job at it. So when you hear like the TCL 10 series, your first thought is probably awesome. Nice new TV line that they came out with. But in fact, it is a phone. And this is the top of the TCL 10 series phone. This is the TCL 10 Pro. And actually, they've been making smartphones for a really long time. They are the ones who made the modern Blackberries, the Alcatel brand. That's all been TCL. So when you hold this phone, it's very clear that TCL followed what's worked for them on the TV side. You've got really nice looking display, really good hardware running somebody else's OS, in this case Android 10, at a very affordable $450 price point. So I think of a phone that costs $450. The first sacrifice that I always make mentally before I pick up a phone is in build quality. It's going to feel cheap. It's going to feel like plastic. That is not the case at all with the TCL 10 Pro. When you feel this phone, it feels like a $1,000 flagship. You turn on the screen and it looks like a $1,000 flagship. From the waterfall display to materials in the back to the weight, the phone feels really premium. And I think that gives it a big step up from the plastic counterparts that are sort of in this $450, $500 price point. That's a giant leg up for TCL. But there are some omissions to sort of get the phone under that price point. There's no wireless charging here if that's something that's important to you. And there isn't any official IP rating. So if you're outside or want to get the phone wet, you're going to want to exercise a pretty decent amount of caution. So those two caveats aside, what you're getting is a phone that checks a lot of boxes, does a lot of things really well, with a few caveats. I've talked a lot in my videos about how the screen is probably the most important thing for me of a phone. It has to look good. It's supportable to everything that I do. And being a TCL made phone, that should be like the first thing you expect to be good. And in that way, TCL absolutely delivers. So it's a 6.47 inch full HD plus AMOLED display. It gets plenty bright and it looks gorgeous. Now you don't have any crazy fast refresh here. You're not having a 2K or 4K display. What you have is a really good 1080 panel. Brightness levels are awesome. I could see it very easily in direct sunlight. It is a waterfall display, which I think visually looks beautiful, but you do get sort of the waterfall display sometimes hiccups. You can have accidental touches when you're holding the side of it, trying to rotate it to watch a video, for example. Easily mitigated and not unique to the 10 Pro, something to keep in mind. So TCL's got something in here called Next Vision. It's basically optimizing the contrast and colors and clarity to give you the best image on the screen. Another cool trick that the phone has, it'll take standard SDR video and I guess you could say upscale it to HDR10. So it'll make the blacks look really black because it's an AMOLED display, but also it'll make the colors appear more vibrant. With the screen being the most important, I think TCL did a really good job with this display. When you consider phones at this $450 price point, you're not gonna find a display that is up to this level of standard. And I think that alone is a reason to consider the TCL 10. You are getting really close to flagship level display, from blackness to brightness to colors to what it can do. Waterfall display is a personal preference. I'm preferential to sort of a flatter phone, but aesthetically it does look beautiful here. The display is no reason to knock this phone. In fact, it might even be its biggest selling point. So while I was testing the TCL 10 Pro, it made me laugh that phones that have less cameras and cost oftentimes twice as much do this, whereas the 10 Pro don't. Which is really nice to have a phone that can actually sit flat on a table without wobbling around when you're trying to type on it. And I think that's impressive too, because there's 4 cameras that are built in here, and oddly 2 flashes. So there's a lot happening on the back of this phone, and it's done while being essentially flush with the back. So here's the camera setup. It's got a 64 megapixel main shooter, a 16 megapixel super wide, 5 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel super low light. And it can do video 4K up to 30 frames a second. So I think like a lot of phones nowadays, AI is making a big play here. The camera is also powered by AI, and it does a couple cool new things. If you hold it up to a banana, for example, it'll tell you how many calories are in that banana. You'll find some stuff that you'll do, the phone will know what you're taking pictures of. So looking at the shots that come out of the camera, right, the first thing you're gonna notice is a watermark. Once you get that turned off, you'll find photos that look good, but look very contrasty. Things almost look neon. So if you take a look in real life, versus here, it looks incredibly bright, and incredibly vibrant and contrasty. Now again, same thing with the display, that might not be to your taste, but the pictures generally look much brighter than most other smartphone cameras out there. So the video side is kind of similar to the still side. The video looks higher contrast than what you might get with some other phones. And again, to your eye, you might like that. So when you look at all the pictures that come out of the variety of sensors, every shot is going to be some version of good, very usable shots. If you want to upload to social media, keep on your phone, or look on the web, every photo is good. TCL is a company that's shown that they can offer products at a lower price while still improving them. And I think camera is probably the biggest area where I would like to see that improvement. I think we'll probably see it month over month with software updates and tweaks. This is all stuff that can be addressed. You take all the stills and all the sensors combined, what you're left with is a good camera array that I wish was great. So display and camera, but there's a lot of other things that go into the phone. I think battery, probably chief among them. 4,500 milliamp hours, which is awesome for really any phone. Now you've got a phone that's got a 1080p AMOLED display. You've got a recipe for really good battery life. And I think maybe the elephant in the room is going to be performance. How is this phone, the Snapdragon 675, going to perform? And that's obviously where TCL was able to save some money, get the price point at the $450. Everyday tasks, opening apps, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the apps that you're going to use, you won't have any slowdown. It's a very capable processor. Watching back HD video and full screen, no issues at all. I was able to load up some games on here. I was able to play PUBG and it worked well. At that point I was aware that it wasn't a flagship processor, but this can still game. It can still do a lot of really high performance things. Where you might start to notice this eventually is in 12 months, in 24 months, as the phone starts to maybe show its age. And I think that's probably helped by the fact that it has 6 gigs of RAM on here. And I give TCL credit for not skimping on the RAM. I think if you're going to have a less powerful processor, but more RAM, the RAM kind of make up for the perhaps less powerful processor. So that's a nice recipe here. Also nice, 128 gigs of storage that's expandable. But again, on a phone that's $450, 120 gigs of storage is awesome. And you're getting a lot of other nice intangibles here. A headphone jack, for example, is nice to have. Got an optical fingerprint reader, so that's built into the screen, and it worked really well for me. And I have odd fingers, don't always work with actual fingerprint readers. This one worked as well as any other optical sensor that I've tested. Some other nice things here too, there's a programmable side button. So I have it set for 1 press to launch Google Assistant, 2 presses to launch a camera. You can customize that. I like having that. And an also nice addition with a really cool software tweak, there is an IR blaster in here. There's an IR app, lets you easily control anything that can take advantage of it. And speaking of software, this is an interesting point for TCL. So as I mentioned earlier, TCL is the brand that built a lot of modern Blackberries. They have the Alcatel brand. They made some Palm phones. They haven't always delivered on quick and timely software updates. And I spoke to TCL about that with the 10 line. And this is a fresh start for them. And they're committed to providing those software updates. So that's something I'm excited to have. So it's very clearly a skin on top of Android. It'll give you a familiar Google experience, and it's not going to ruin or diminish like other skins can, your use with the phone. So the TCL 10 Pro, like pretty much every other phone that's ever existed, is not a perfect phone, but but it nails the fundamentals of a really good device. It delivers a really solid screen, delivers a decent camera experience, and a build quality that I don't think you're going to find in any device at this $450 price point. Now, it's not the only 10 series phones available. TCL also has a 10L and a 10 5G. If you want videos on those, let us know and we'll have some follow-up coverage. But you're getting a lot of phone for that price. And if you want to pick one up, it'll be available at Best Buy, Walmart, and Amazon, as well as TCL themselves. And also, if you live in Canada, it'll be coming to your neck of the woods pretty soon. If you want to pick one up though, we'll link to them down below. But overall, a really positive experience from a brand that I think has a lot of potential to carve out their own niche in the smartphone space. I think consumers will respond very well to that kind of disruptive newcomer to the smartphone world.